Hello, and welcome to What in the Mystical Hell podcast. I'm your host, Nikki Jobin. Our topic for today's episode is the pagan Wheel of the Year. If you've never heard of the Wheel of the Year, there are 8 major holidays, or Sabbats, celebrated by many pagans and witches. These include 4 quarter days and 4 cross-quarter days that mark solstices, equinoxes, and changing seasons. Starting at the beginning of the wheel, the Sabbats are as follows. Yule, which starts us off for a year, falls somewhere between December 20th to 23rd and is also called the winter solstice. Imbolg lands February 1st to the 2nd, and it is also called Candlemas or Bridget's Day. This is the halfway point between the winter solstice and the spring equinox. Ostara, which lasts March 20th through the 23rd, is our spring equinox. Beltane is May 1st, which is our May Day festival and the halfway point between the spring equinox and the summer solstice. Litha lands June 20th through the 23rd, and it is our summer solstice. Lunasa, or Lammas, on August 1st, is our first harvest festival. This lands halfway between the summer solstice and the autumn equinox. Mabon lands between September 20th through the 23rd. That's our autumn equinox. And at the end of the year, we have the Witches' New Year's, Samhain, which is October 31st, All Hallows Eve. If you listened to my last Sabbat episode, I talked about Mabon. This episode, I'm talking about the end of the pagan wheel, Samhain. Or is it the beginning? Samhain is the end of the harvest and the Witches' New Year. It is a time when the veil is at its thinnest. We use this time to honor the ancestors and the dead and to ask for their guidance. Samhain is celebrated in many different cultures, although called other names and with some differences in the traditions. In the Voodoo tradition, it is called Fête Gede. Practitioners pay their respects to Baron Samedi, dance in the streets, walk through graveyards, and offer food to their dead. This is very similar to Dia de los Muertos in Latin traditions. Followers of this tradition create ofrendas to honor their dead. Ofrendas are often decorated with pictures and flowers and the deceased's favorite foods. It is believed that these spirits return to earth and walk among us. Both Fête Gede and Dia de los Muertos are celebrated on November 1st and 2nd. In Slavic cultures, they have a Samhain equivalent called Jada. This is celebrated on October 31st. Similarities between Jada and Samhain include believing the spirits of the dead return and leaving offerings of the food and drink for the dead. However, for Jada, they also place new clothing near graves for the dead, light fires for the dead to warm themselves, and place special pieces of woods at the crossroads to help guide their dead back to their eternal rest. In Norse traditions, they celebrate Alfablot, or sacrifice to the elves. It is similar to Samhain in that both traditions honor the dead and offer sacrifices to appease malevolent spirits. However, the Alfablot festival is held from October 28th through November 2nd. One of the differences between the traditions that I found very interesting, Samhain is a community festival and all are welcome. But Alfablot is a private family affair led by the women of the household. The laws of hospitality are suspended during this time, and travelers would be turned away, as accepting a stranger into the household during this time could invite the wrath of Odin. In many pagan and Celtic traditions, Samhain is celebrated with a feast to honor the dead, and often featured a bonfire and communion with the dead. Today I'm going to go over some correspondences that may help you or inspire you for your Samhain celebrations. I also want to take a look at the history and how some practices have evolved into our Halloween traditions. Let's take a look at that first. 3 of my favorite Halloween traditions are the lighting of the jack-o'-lanterns, dressing in costumes, and trick-or-treating. But did you know that these traditions have pagan roots? During the Iron Age, Samhain participants disguised themselves with animal skins to deceive evil spirits. This practice is thought to have evolved later into the tradition of dressing in costumes. The tradition of trick-or-treating comes from the practice of mumming. Mummers would dress up in costume to protect themselves from evil spirits and monsters, and then would go door to door and sing songs for the dead. They'd receive cakes as payment. Lastly, the tradition of the jack-o'-lantern. Historically, bonfires were lit to protect the community from evil spirits. And as time went on, this evolved into also using smaller, more personal fires to protect the home. The practice of carving faces into vegetables and lighting candles in them, that has Irish and Scottish roots. And the practice of carving the jack-o'-lanterns in particular is thought to be tied to the story of Stingy Jack. Stingy Jack was a man who tricked the devil into captivity on a number of occasions. Each time he bartered the safety of his own soul for the devil's release. Then when Jack finally died, he was turned away from heaven because the life he led was not a good life. But he couldn't go to hell because of his multiple deals with the devil. So the devil released Jack into the world to walk the night for eternity. He only had a burning piece of hellfire to light his way. Jack placed that hellfire into the core of a carved-out turnip and has been roaming the earth ever since. The Irish came to call this creature Jack of the Lantern, which eventually became jack-o'-lantern. The Irish and Scots began carving their own jack-o'-lanterns out of turnips and potatoes and putting them on the doorsteps and in windows to ward off Stingy Jack and any other malevolent spirits wandering the night. As the Irish immigrated to America, the practice evolved into carving pumpkins, which were more plentiful. Jack-o'-lanterns, as we know them, were born. A little bit of fun history, but now let's get into those correspondences. As I said in the beginning of the podcast, Samhain is a time of remembrance, a time to honor those who have come before. The veil is at its thinnest and doors open to the other side. Communication and interaction with the spirit world is easier. So here are some activities that you can do during this time. Celebrate the ancestors or your honored dead. If that be creating an ancestor's altar or an ofrenda, that's great. Or maybe you have a dumb supper or hold a seance. Honor your dead in a way that resonates with you. Honor the cycles of life. As we step into the darker portion of the year, we have the opportunity to release what no longer serves us, cut the ties that bind, and reevaluate the relationships in our lives. Now is the time to weed out any toxicity that blocks us from our higher potential. You can also use this time for fall cleaning in your home. Do you have possessions that can be better used somewhere else? Release the old so that you have room for newness, and then set intentions for your future. The symbolism of life and death can translate to different parts of your life. You can also honor Samhain through rituals and traditions. Create your Samhain ritual with components that have meaning for you and this time of the year. Create your Samhain altar or your ancestor altar and make that a tradition every year. As you carve pumpkins or dress up for that costume party, remember the history behind why we do these things and find the magic in them. Be intentional as you're doing these activities. Another activity that you can engage in is divination and prophecy. With the veil being so thin and the doors to the spirit world wide open, your divinations and readings will have a bit more punch to them. When seeking insight, be open to new tools. Now, spirit boards and tarot cards are the more popular tools, but there are also practices like scrying, crystal ball gazing, tea leaf reading, or dream interpretation. Hell, with a bit of practice, you can also be able to scry using the fire or candle flames. Please remember, these activities can be done solo or with a group. However, please exercise caution when using a spirit board. Don't open doors you may not know how to close. Now, let's go over some altar and Samhain correspondences. When setting up your Samhain altar, don't forget that it's your altar, and it can be done as simply or as elaborately as you choose. Here are some different items that you can use as altar decorations. Candles. Candles represent our guiding light during the times of darkness and spiritual illumination. Use colors that will coordinate with Samhain, and I'm going to go into that a little bit later in the podcast. Autumn leaves and acorns symbolize the cycles of life and death, and also how this time of year can be transformative, both for the season and in our own lives. Pumpkins and gourds represent our connection to the earth. Their energy is very grounding and symbolize the abundance at this time of year. Seasonal flowers and herbs. Arrange your botanicals as you like to add color and symbolism to your altar. Photos and mementos. If you are not doing an ancestor altar per se, you can add items of remembrance for your ancestors or beloved dead. This can also help to connect to their energies during this time. You can also put offerings to the dead. As with mementos, leaving offerings can help us connect to our beloved dead and help them connect to us. Food, drinks, or items that they might have enjoyed. Those are all suitable offerings. You can add crystals and stones to enhance the energies of your workings and of any divination tools you might use during this time. Speaking of divination tools, leave your tarot cards, scrying mirrors, and other tools of divination on your altar to infuse with the energies of the season. The veil, being in its thinnest, offers many opportunities for successful communication with the dead. Again, setting up your altar in a way that's meaningful to you is really the most important part. All right, I talked about colors a minute ago. There are several colors that correspond to Samhain. Let's explore. Gold. So, gold at this time of year is associated with prosperity and the abundance of the harvest. So we've just finished the harvest and we are now reaping all the benefits of what we've sown. It's also symbolic of your own personal illumination during this darker part of the year. Use it as an accent color during rituals when dealing with personal growth or intention setting. Red. Red is the color of passion and fire and just our creativity. It's also the color of blood and our link to the ancestors. Used during rituals of transformation and ancestor work. Purple. Purple is representative of our connection to the other side and the mysticism and magic of the season. Used in spirit rituals or rituals where you're looking inward or trying to gain wisdom from the other side. Next, we have orange, which is the second most associated color with Samhain. It symbolizes the harvest and the hearth. Used in transformation and manifestation rituals. As the fire transforms the wood into ash, the orange as a symbol of the fire can help us transform into our higher selves or the next portion of our life, the next part of our journey. Lastly, black. The most widely associated color with Samhain, black represents this darker half of the year, the thinning of the veil and the mysteries of the other side. It also symbolizes us turning inward and digging deeper into our own personal darkness. Not necessarily good or bad, just our shadow selves, which is important for balance. Use black in your rituals for protection and transformation, also when you're doing shadow work. Altar cloths, ribbons, and candles in these colors can help create the right ambiance for your Samhain celebrations. Next, we have crystals. Crystals can enhance the energy of your Samhain celebrations and ancestor work. Choose ones that resonate with you. First on our list is amethyst. Amethyst is associated with clarity, intuition, and spiritual protection. You can use amethyst during your ancestor work in the astral and dream realms, and during any personal exploration rituals. Bloodstone. A very grounding stone, it has energies connected to healing, vitality, and strength. Use it during ancestor work, especially if you're working with ancestral trauma, breaking generational trauma cycles, or doing any healing ancestral work. Carnelian. The vitality and courage associated with carnelian boosts your energies during ancestor work and rituals of transformation. It can also help with your motivation for road opening and emergence work. Labradorite. This is a stone connected with the spirit world, and it makes it a great choice for divination work, Samhain rituals, ancestor work, and work with the veil in general. This can enhance your awareness and intuition. Obsidian, a very powerful stone of protection and grounding. This makes it a wonderful choice for any work involving the spirit world or creating a sacred space. Obsidian can shield from negative energies and strengthen your connection to your spirit guides and the world beyond the veil. Lastly, we have smoky quartz. This is another powerful grounding stone. Use it during transformation and personal growth rituals, as it can help you release negative energies and energies that no longer serve you. Finding the right combination of crystals will definitely enhance your Samhain workings and offer protection against any negative energies. Different herbs and flowers can be used to enhance the energy of your space and your Sabbat preparations. I'm going to talk about different flower correspondences first, and then we'll go to herbs. There are so many different flowers that you can use to enhance your Samhain celebrations. Remember, just keep choosing blooms, as with other things, that are going to speak to your personal fragrance. Marigolds are probably the first flower that I think of when it comes to Samhain. They're very prominent for Dia de los Muertos, and I use them as we put up our ofrenda, or our ancestor altar. Marigolds are believed to attract and welcome spirits, so they're perfect for your ancestor celebrations. They also have very protective energies. While we're talking about marigolds, I would love to make a small correction to my Maven podcast, Season 1, Episode 8. I stated that marigolds and calendula are the same plant, and oh my God, that was an error. I don't know what I was thinking. They are absolutely not the same plant and should not be substituted for each other. But that being said, marigold, again, is going to be perfect for your ancestor celebrations and remembrance. Chrysanthemums. These are symbolic of life and death, which is why we see them so often at funerals. They're associated with the transitions from one season to the next, and they come in the vibrant colors of autumn. Black-eyed Susans represent the transition from fall into winter and are also symbolic of the harvest in the sun. Next, we have dahlias. Dahlias are among my favorite flowers. They represent resilience, inner strength, and transformation. They also symbolize the ability to withstand challenges and embrace change. Cosmos flowers are seen as messengers between the earthly and spiritual realms. They represent spiritual connections and the thinning of the veil. Sunflowers. These represent the sun, the harvest, and gratitude for the abundance of the earth. These are just a few examples of flowers that you can use. Explore other autumn blooms and find ones that resonate with you. Use them in floral arrangements, altar decorations, or as offerings for your Samhain celebrations. Now let's talk about herbs and incense. All right, first off the bat, let's get this one out of the way. Sage is probably one of the most common herbs for protection and space clearing. I've made it quite clear about my personal feelings for sage. It is not my first choice, but it is a very, very powerful herb and incense. If you choose to use sage, just do your research and choose your practice with it in the variety that you use wisely. Now, after I talk about sage, I always have to talk about rosemary, because this is actually one of my favorite protective herbs, and it's a great choice to cleanse and purify your sacred spaces, both before and after ritual. Rosemary is associated with remembrance, clarity, and protection, and it can be used to honor your ancestors and connect to their wisdom. It's a great choice to enhance mental clarity and focus. You can use rosemary as an incense itself, as a powdered incense, or as an incense stick, but I've gotten a lot better results with rosemary in a smoke bundle. Okay, patchouli. Patchouli is a great choice for grounding energy both before and after your rituals. It's also associated with protection and intuition. My next favorite item is actually not an herb. It is a resin. Frankincense resin is used to elevate your energy during Samhain rituals and assist in connecting to the spirit realm. It's also associated with purification and protection. And a combination of frankincense and sandalwood in an incense is actually what I use most of the time for cleansing and purification for my rituals. Cedar. Cedar is also associated with protection and purification. It's burnt during rituals to ward off negative energy and to create a sacred space. Cedar can also help blend harmonious energies into your rituals. Mugwort. If you have ever had a cup of mugwort tea before you've done some divination, you know how good it can be. It is, of course, associated with divination, dream work, and work in the liminal spaces and the astral realm. Its protective energies can ward off malevolent spirits and protect you when your spirit's kind of floating around in those other realms. I've found that it's best when burned or when used in a tea for psychic or intuitive work. The tea is my go-to. Yarrow. Yarrow strengthens psychic abilities and provides a shield against negative energies. Use it in divination and spirit work. All right, myrrh. I'm going to go to the left field with this. Let me tell you, myrrh has great protective and grounding energy. Use it in rituals to anchor your energy and help release what no longer serves you. I personally cannot use myrrh because I am allergic. So I just want to put this out there that if you are burning any new herbs, make sure that you try them in a well-ventilated space. Don't find out about your allergy like I did, where you burn something to cleanse your room and then you can't breathe anymore. I don't know what that says about me as a person when myrrh gets rid of negative energies, but the frankincense does just fine for me. Thanks. My last one I want to talk about is the copal resin. It is used to cleanse and purify your space and provides protection during rituals. I usually will cleanse a space with one of the previously mentioned herbs, and then I seal it with the copal. Or if I'm doing spell work, the last thing I do is to seal it with the copal. It can also be used during your rituals to assist in spirit communication. As with previous categories, use your best judgment and choose what resonates with you. Even for community gatherings, these rituals are really personal, so choose herbs that will enhance your experience. Not every herb will fit your need, and that's okay. Not every herb is going to feel right for you, so just do what feels right to you and have fun. All right, I'm going to take a drink before we move on to ritual talk. I know I say this every time, and I will say it again. A ritual does not have to be elaborate. For some of us, the details are what help us get in the mindset of the ritual. And you know what? That's okay. I'm not that person, but if you're that person and aren't really sure where to begin, I have a recommendation for you. Let me recommend Llewellyn's Sabbat Essential Series number 6, Samhain, Rituals, Recipes, and Lore for Halloween. This book contains quite a bit of information, including how to perform rituals. And the bonus is that it was written by my business partner and co-owner of Golden Apple Metaphysical, my shop, Diana Rachel. So she had a lot of fun writing that, and I think that you will enjoy it as a book. I will have a link to where you can purchase the book on Amazon in the episode notes. And if you have any recommendations, books that you think are great for Samhain, for newbies, or for seasoned practitioners, please, please, please shoot us an email. I love recommendations. Rituals can be as elaborate or as simple as you choose. Here are a few tips that I found that come in handy. Ground and cleanse yourself. Making sure that you are cleansed and grounded is important for the simple reason that you don't want the little bits and pieces of your day that have made you frustrated and crazy affecting your ritual. Get home, rinse all that shit off before you start your ritual. Get yourself regrounded and refocused so that you can go into that ritual with your intentions and your energies the best forward. Get rid of all that crap from your day. Don't take it in the circle with you. Cleanse your space. Doing your ritual in an energetically and physically clean space helps you keep your focus. It keeps the crazy not only from your day, but from your space creeping in on your rituals. It clears all that out so that you can really focus on your intention. This is really important if you don't have a dedicated space for that. Like for me, if I'm going to do a ritual in the house, it's going to be in my family room, which my kids are coming through here all day. The dogs are coming through here all day. So taking that time to clean up this space so that I'm not tripping over things, it's really, really important. It clears all the crazy out so that I can really focus on the intention. And having a physically clean space means that you are not tripping over things when you're doing ritual. I don't know if you've ever tried to do a ritual in a room with Legos or dog toys, but I promise you, you will step on one at a crucial moment. It happens. So clean your body, clean your space. Have a copy of your ritual written out in case you blank on the next part. We all do it. It happens. You know that there are some days you're walking down the street, you go to say hi and you forget your own name. It happens. Keep yourself notes. It helps keep you on track. Your deities are not going to judge you for having notes. Nobody died because we decided to keep notes. Our deities didn't stop working with us because we had a couple notes. In fact, they're probably like, hey, good call, good call. All right. Keep a fire extinguisher handy, just in case. I say this every single time, but it is a fact. We found it to be so helpful in the past because sometimes, you set the tablecloth on fire or a broom, or sometimes the garage insulation. Now, let me just say that this has not happened in quite a while. Still keep a fire extinguisher handy because things are flammable, and if you're not paying attention, they just might light up. Or, maybe you don't put something in the cauldron all the way and a little spark flies off and you hit something you don't want to go up. So keep that fire extinguisher around within close reach. At some point, you will need it. Or maybe that's just me. It's okay to laugh. We need to make mistakes. Mistakes help us learn. And you know what? Sometimes it's really funny. If everything needed to be serious, I don't know what I'd do. I don't. But if you make a mistake, don't let it flip you out. Don't let it derail you. Just accept it, laugh, and then reset yourself and start again. It's okay, I promise. Work with what you have handy. Almost everything has a substitute, and likely you have that substitute in your spice cabinet. Okay, I'm going to say this. Any doors that you open, make sure that you close them. This is especially important at this time of year because we are doing Samhain rituals. We have spirit and ancestor work going on. We need to make especially sure that we are closing those doors behind us. Let's give an example. If you call to quarters or you invoke a spirit, make sure to offer gratitude and then let it depart. If you're using a spirit board, make sure you close that door. I am going to say this again. If you use a spirit board, make sure you close that door. And if you are a newbie and have never used a spirit board before, Samhain is not the time to start. Or find yourself an experienced buddy. Don't do it alone. If you absolutely must do it, this is the time that I will tell you absolutely need a sacred circle. You absolutely need some kind of protection circle, whether it be salt, whether it be the chalk outlines with the symbols. It's very important to have that to keep yourself protected and to keep those doors contained. If you are in your home, you can invoke the laws of hospitality should anything go awry. Right? At any time. If you have a spirit that's getting out of hand and, it's talking out the side of its face, you let it know, hey, you are not welcome here. You are in my home. By the laws of hospitality, you are not being a good guest. Please depart. It's a quick solution should anything kind of go kittywampus. That all being said, sometimes the best rituals are simple ones that come from the heart. Don't feel like you have to make something so elaborate that it loses its meaning to you. Sometimes we focus so much on the details that the simple beauty and joy that we have in this simple moment gets lost in the details. Don't let yourself get lost or feel that you have to do things that feel false to you because you're trying to make an impression. Be true to yourself and you'll always win out. When you create your own rituals, they should be personal and meaningful. Samhain rituals involving ancestor work, those are automatically going to be somewhat personal just due to the nature of working with your bloodline. And know that quick, simple rituals absolutely can be meaningful too. It's all about your intention. I promise I say this every Sabbat episode, but I will have a future episode about rituals and casting at some point. I just actually have to learn how to do that successfully. It doesn't work for me. It feels false for me, but I have enough resources that talk about rituals that I can give a pretty good overview. All right. If you've listened to any of my Sabbat episodes, actually any episodes I talk about at all, you know that the food is my favorite part. Don't be afraid to think outside your box for food, whether it be ritual foods or community sharing, right? Have fun, especially this time of year. Some of the recipes that I've made are tried and true and are kid tested, but I have a few included because I want to try them out in the future. I've also included some items that are offering based for you and your ancestors should you choose to make offerings to your dead. When thinking about Samhain foods, remember the veil is thin between worlds, and special items were offered to help create harmonious relationships with the other side. Almost anything that'll be in season for this harvest, it's going to be great for your Sabbath feast. All right, let's look at individual food items, and then we'll get into recipes. Apples. These are pretty significant during Samhain. They're a symbol of immortality, wisdom, fertility, magic, and mystery. As offerings, apples were given to the gods to appease debts and to encourage the return of the sun. They were associated with the other world and thought to be eaten by the Fae as well. They were used in divination and good fortune rituals. Use apples in your recipes to celebrate the abundance of the harvest and to restore balance and harmony into your life. And it doesn't help that they're good for a little good fortune too, right? A fun fact about apples, which you probably should know, but if you don't, if you cut an apple in half and you pull it apart and look at it, you'll see a little pentagram in there. Fun little bit of trivia if you didn't already know that. Pumpkins. Pumpkins have grounding and protective energy. You can use those recipes to protect your family, provide healing and a solid foundation for the year ahead. Root vegetables. Almost anything that we traditionally would make this time of year, as it would get colder most of the time, not now because we're going through a horrible heat wave, but traditionally it would be a colder time. So there were lots of stews, there were lots of soups, and people would use a lot of root vegetables in there because that's what they had handy and they wanted to use them before they went bad. Well, root vegetables are associated with the earth and grounding energy, as well as nourishing energy. So manifest that when you're making hearty stews and soups. Grains. As with our last two harvest Sabbats, grains symbolize abundance in the harvest. They also are associated with the cycle of life and death. And in bread form, grains represent earth energy. And remember, the act of making bread, you can actually work your spell work in that depending on the herbs that you use. And they are symbols of hospitality throughout the world. And you can actually weave into your bread making the magic and the intention to have guests in your home bathe, right? Whether those guests be human people, non-corporeal people, deity people, infernal people. The act of eating this bread will manifest your energy and complete your spell. Nuts. This is a fun little story here. Nuts were used in divination practices on Samhain, especially hazelnuts or chestnuts, for matrimonial or love divination. A popular Celtic game involved tossing two nuts in the fire. These nuts would represent both members in a prospective romantic coupling. If both of the nuts burned evenly, they were said to symbolize a sturdy relationship. But if one of the nuts popped or rolled away in the heat, that would mean that one of the lovers would prove unfaithful. So be careful when you're burning your nuts out there. Roasted meats, smoked meats, traditional offerings on Samhain nights. I know people don't like to think about it this way, but this is an act of necromancy. We are taking something that we have killed for food, something dead. We are cooking it to nourish our bodies, to nourish ourself and our life force and that of our loved ones and community. We are revering that death to nourish ourselves and continue the life cycle. Whether or not you like to think of it as an act of necromancy, it is. And you should honor that. You should honor the life force of that animal that has died so that we may live. Pomegranates. Pomegranates have long had an association with the underworld, right? We know the story of Persephone. Pomegranates are also associated with beauty, fertility, and eternal life. Use pomegranates in your recipes to connect and communicate with the other side. Right, we've talked about some different food items, but let's get some recipes in here. Food and food traditions are a big part of our celebrations. Oh, I don't know if they're a part of yours, but they're a big part of my celebrations. As you're making the food, concentrate on your intentions. Be mindful, be intentional. Think about this food that you are cooking to give your family, your friends, your community. What is the energy that you're putting in this? I think nowadays we lose some of that kitchen magic. We forget that this isn't just eating something so we won't die. This is nourishing ourselves and our family. It's not just filling our bodies. It can be filling our souls as well. In the episode notes, I will have links to these specific recipes. So don't forget to check there. Mulled cider. We're going to start with something fun. Mulled cider is a traditional Samhain drink made from apples. Right? So now we know we have the longevity, we have the immortality, the wisdom, the fertility, magic. You know, we are popping those all into some mulled cider, right? You can make it alcoholic or not. That's totally up to you. And you can also change up the ingredients just a bit and make wassail, a traditional Samhain and Yule drink. Both hot beverages contain protective spices like cloves and cinnamon. So create a batch. Protect your community from malevolent spirits this Samhain. Irish stew. I don't know about you, but I love a good Irish stew. It's a hearty staple for this time of year. It usually contains roast meat, or it should contain roast meat, which is usually lamb, but sometimes it's beef, and root vegetables. So we have our act of necromancy where we are nourishing ourselves and continuing the cycle of life. And then we have the root energy, the root vegetables. So we have that grounding energy. I've also added a link for a vegan Irish stew in my recipe link. Both of these stews are actually a really big hit in my house. Colcannon and Irish champ, right? They're basically mashed potatoes with some stuff in it. If you have the colcannon, it has cabbage and kale and potatoes and onions and some other things in there. But if you get the Irish champ, it just basically is the mashed potatoes with green onions in them. So I will have both recipes in with my recipe link. Pumpkin bread. You know, this time of year, none of these celebrations feel right to me without pumpkin bread. Samhain certainly doesn't. Pumpkins are a symbol of the season. They're a symbol of abundance, stability, and security. They are also linked to the moon and water and have protective energies. So you have two of the elements there. As you are making them into bread, you have the fire, the heat that is transforming them, and the air that is steaming through them. So you have the four elements to create that magic with that pumpkin bread. The ingredients that go into the bread will also add to those energies. Cinnamon offers abundance and success and also protection. The nutmeg will help us overcome obstacles and embrace positive change. Clove helps us release pain and be open to positive energies. I think we all could use a little bit more of that. And, the vanilla is going to offer calming and soothing energies along with personal empowerment. Plus, yum! Have a slice with your morning coffee or your morning tea. It infuses your intentions with stamina. And start your morning with a little magic. Pardon me. All right. Now we are touching on my Latin American side. Pan de Muertos is a type of Mexican sweetbread that is associated with the Day of the Dead, a Mexican holiday that is celebrated on November 1st and 2nd. So in my family, we do have the Celtic roots and the European roots, right? So we celebrate Samhain, but I also have Latin American through my mother's side. So we also celebrate Dia de los Muertos. So we do have an ofrenda, and we have a Samhain altar. Oh, I am hoping to be able to get a video for the both, so that you can see a little bit of the differences between the two. But for this type of sweetbread, it's a special Mexican holiday treat, right? The round bread is going to symbolize the circle of life, or the cycle of life and death, because of its circular shape, right? Extra dough is arranged on top to represent the skull, the crossbones, and tears shed for the living. It's traditionally flavored with anise seeds and orange zest. The anise seed is used in there for spiritual protection. It's something that you can put on your ofrenda and that you can eat for your family as well. So make sure you make a couple loaves. Plus, it's pretty tasty, so you might want a couple anyway. Soul cakes. I know in modern times it's way more popular to eat candy on October 31st, but maybe you feel like reaching back into history for a treat. Remember the mummers I talked about earlier? The predecessors of the trick-or-treaters? When they would go door to door and sing songs for the dead, they were paid with soul cakes. So I've included that recipe as well. The last thing I'd like to talk about while we're on the subject of food is the dumb supper. The dumb supper, or silent supper, is a traditional Samhain ritual. It's a way to honor our beloved dead, to speak to them and allow them to speak with us. Menu choices may vary, but including soul cakes is a very good choice. Your setting. So we're going to want to set the table with a black cloth, black plates and cutlery, and black napkins. Then use black candles as your only source of light. I know it might be hard to find all that black for your table setting, though in this day and age, you can very easily get black paper plates, black plastic forks, right? If you have the money and opportunity to get yourself a black china or, black dishware and silverware, go ahead and do it. But again, it's about your intention. Okay. If you absolutely cannot find all black for your table setting, black and white is acceptable. You just want to have the black as the primary color there. Okay. When you are hosting a dumb supper, clearly the point is that no one can speak. And that means that if you're the host, you have the responsibility of anticipating your guests' needs without them communicating verbally. Depending on the size of your table, you're going to want to make sure each end has its own salt and pepper, butter, stuff like that readily available. Also, watch your guests to see, does anybody need a drink refill? Did they drop their fork? Do they need another one? Do they need more napkins? You just want to kind of pay attention to that stuff as the host, because they will not be able to ask you for things. There are a few guidelines. Create a sacred space for your dumb supper. You can do this by casting a circle, right? An energetic circle. You can smoke cleanse. If it is your practice, you can smudge. Or you can make a salt circle. The only thing about the salt circle is if you have a lot of guests, it's easy to disturb this. So maybe a salt circle is not the best idea in that situation. Next, you want to eliminate distractions. No electronics. So no phones, no TV, no music in the background. We are going to put our focus and intention into this moment and what's going on here. We're going to turn inward. We're going to open up our senses to be able to commune with our dead. Now, remember, this is supposed to be a silent ritual. So you really want to think about this ahead of time. If you have small children and they can't sit still, it's okay to do something else as your Samhain celebration. Maybe if you have a guest that you don't think can keep silent, maybe you don't invite them. You really have to think about all these things ahead of time so that we can be in this moment. Now, once you've got your decor, you've decided on your menu, you've sent out your invitations, you want to ask each adult to bring a letter or a note for the deceased person that they wish to speak to. These are personal and should be kept private because it's their thoughts, their words to their person. We're going to set a place at the table for each guest and reserve the head of the table for the place of the spirits. Now, if you have the space to set individual places for the spirits, feel free. Go ahead. Again, this is another one of those things, simple or as elaborate as you need. But it's not always feasible for us to do that. So, if you do not have the space to do that, where you have your place setting at the end of the table or the head of the table, you're going to put tea lights, one for each deceased guest. Okay? Then you're going to cover the spirit chair with a black or a white cloth. Our dinner party has started. No one may speak from the time they enter the dining room. As each guest enters the room, they should take a moment to stop at the spirit chair and offer a silent prayer to the dead. Once everyone is seated, join hands and take a moment to silently bless the meal. The host, or in my case, hostess, who should be seated directly across from the spirit chair, will serve the meal to the guests in order of age, from oldest to youngest. No one should eat until all of the guests, including our spirit guests, are served. Now, this might take a little bit of practice, a little bit of getting used to, because we're not going to talk at our meal. We are going to commune with our dead silently. And when everyone is finished eating, each guest should get out the note to the dead that they brought. That person is going to go to the head of the table where spirit sits and find the candle for your deceased loved one. Focus on your note and your words and your feelings. Then you're going to burn it in that candle's flame and then return to your seat. Now, we'll want to make sure that we have a plate or a cauldron, something that you can put the burning paper in, right? Because we don't want to set the table on fire, even if we have a fire extinguisher handy. When everyone has had their turn, join hands once again and offer a silent prayer to the dead. After that prayer, everyone is going to leave the room in silence, and one by one, we're going to stop at the spirit chair on our way out the door and say goodbye one more time. This ritual may be more than your group is able to handle, right? It's a thing. The staying quiet part is really hard. But if you can do this, it is such a spiritual and energetic experience. I guarantee you, it is something you will remember. All in all, our meals nourish us in more than just our bodies. Again, if you're doing the cooking, cook with intention and feed your soul too. It's not just about feeding the bodies and souls of our people. It's about feeding that in ourselves. I really hope that you've enjoyed this episode and found at least some of the information useful. If you try any of the recipes, send me a picture. Let me know what you think. If you hated it, well, that kind of sucks. But if you loved it, I would love to know both. I want to know both. Or if you have a recipe or a tradition that you would like to share. Or if you have participated in a dumb supper and would like to share with our listeners, please send us an email or comment on our social media. Catch us for the next episode when Lauren will be back and we'll discuss more witchy shit. We might be doing that at the end of the month. I have a salon and a Halloween party coming up, so Lauren and I might do a little episode on that night. But thanks for joining me today. Again, I really, really hope that you found this episode fun and informative, and I would love to have your questions or comments. Find us on Facebook or Instagram. Those links will be in our episode notes. And if you would like to support our podcast, we're attached to the Golden Apple Metaphysical Patreon. So Golden Apple Metaphysical is my company. It's the parent company to this podcast. And the whole reason for us having a Patreon is so that hopefully we can raise enough money to have a brick and mortar location. And then we'll be able to have workshops and we'll be able to have community events and so many resources for those of us out there. Sometimes it's really hard. I've said it in one of my earlier episodes that sometimes if you're not a part of a tradition, it's hard to find community. And that's what we hope to someday build with Golden Apple. You can sign up as a patron to access exclusive podcast content and and some other goodies from Golden Apple. You can find us at www.patreon.com/goldenapplemetaphysical. Also, the link to the recipes does go to the Patreon, so you can kind of take a look, but the links, the recipes themselves are open to the public. So you do not have to be a member to access those recipes. But hopefully you'll like what you see and want to support us. If you have any questions, comments, personal experiences, please email them to us at whatinthemysticalhell@gmail.com. Thank you again so much for spending part of your day or night with me. It is truly my honor to produce these episodes for you. This has been another episode of What in the Mystical Hell podcast, where we honor the ancestors in our own way. And when things go bump in the night, we know how to bump back. Take care.